Well, I feel like a complete fucking tit. I just completed the entire 40-minute battle report, all of the recordings, set everything up, went to put my my VO into the video, and I was on mute for the whole thing. So this is a re-recording of this battle report. I tried to get it recorded and produced for you guys the same day the match happened in order to publish it this evening. I don't think that's going to happen as a result because I'm kind of annoyed. And yeah, let's try to recap everything again. Man, the first recording was so good. Anyway, this is Game 2 of the Gauntlet side event. This is my second match, obviously, and I've got a matchup against a fellow named Jerroii. I'm not sure where he's from. I'm probably France, who knows. And this is, like I mentioned, the Gauntlet side event. We had the choice of this Empire of Sonstal gunline list, a Demon Legions list, pretty classic Demon Legions list, similar to one we've seen many, many times before. Pretty much the cookie cutter Demon Legion list, or a Kingdom of Aquitaine list. So I pretty much went into this pairing saying I could take either the Empire or I probably could have taken any of them, to be honest, but my team has an awful lot of single model units in it, so this Empire list is particularly nasty against that stuff. So I opted to eat the gun line. And yeah, so when I played this game, we hadn't finished any of our games yet, so it was a bit of a mystery what I needed to do here. I felt I could win this one big, so that's what I'm going for. That's the intention and the strategy here. So this is deployment. I'll just try to run through really quickly what he has. My list I think you know and should recognize, but he's got 5 rioters, he's got 2 wizards on griffins by the hill, 10 crossbows on the hill, 15 flagellants, a cannon, 9 rangers, 10 more crossbows. That's a rocket battery. I think they're handgunners in the ruins there. 11 or 10 and 1 artificer in that unit. Then we got a mortar. We've got that's 8, maybe 8 or 9 electoral cav. I think it's 8, and there's a wizard in there with divination. I think it's divination with scrying and all that shit. The general, the BSB are all in that unit. We've got another 10 crossbows, 15 flagellants. There's 9 rangers in the woods there, and then you've got another unit of 8 electoral cav with an inquisitor. So that's all his drops. Magic, I've taken -1 to wound on my general and my anvil, -hit on my general and anvil, and revocation on the anvil. He's got again divination, so on his wizard in the electoral cav unit he's got know thine enemy, scrying, stars align, and an erring strike. His other 2 wizards, one has alchemy, and it has taken, I believe, the lash, Quicksilver Lash, and the other has a fireball, so they're out there slinging spells. Yeah, that's pretty it. So the objective here is markers. He placed the first marker in the far west, and I placed the second in the center. My game plan here was to try to force the combat into just one small portion of the map. But I also sort of expected with his cav he might try to do some dirt way out in the east. So I deployed somewhat in somewhat of a balanced way, avoiding the lake. If the lake weren't there, I feel like I would have been more to the west. My second column, or my third column rather, would have been pretty much like 6 inches to the east of my magic spear bus there. But with the lake, you don't want to take those DTs for free, so I just avoid it. My game plan here was to try to get the top side. I really wanted to lose the side roll, and I did. So my opponent, I was pretty sure, would want bottom with his gun line. So I wanted him to have the hill, expecting him to put his war machines and stuff on the hill and use that as sort of his fire base. And then my intention was to deploy both of my scouts in the west of the map, behind that wall. So that's 2 units of rangers, 24 shots, mostly on 4s, 3s if it's close range. So they would probably kill, on average, 1 war machine a turn on that hill, maybe better. So that was the goal. So when I lost the sides roll, I chose to deploy everything so that I could get into his face as quickly as possible, given how much DACA he has on his side of the map. And in doing so, I guess he chose to... I'm not sure why. I'm really curious why he deployed in the way he did. Conventional wisdom would say to use the hill to your advantage, particularly since my cannons are standard, his war machines are standard, and wouldn't always be able to see one another. So maybe that was why he didn't want his war machines getting sniped by my cannons. I'm really not sure. But yeah, this is deployment. So then I had the first scout, and I scouted behind the wall. He chose to scout into the forest. And given that his 2 primary combat units are way out in the east, I felt I needed a little bit more support on that flank. The alternative could have been to abandon that flank entirely. That's maybe a better play in hindsight. Might have been to place a 2nd unit of rangers in the west and then basically just play for objectives. But I would be taking so much damage from his shooting over time that I think this was, it seems that I'm okay with this. I'm okay with what I did here, actually. Yeah, so we'll move on to Dwarf's turn 1. So Dwarf's turn 1, I start scurrying forward to get out from under threat of his shooting. Probably the most interesting movement is in the east. You'll see things are staggered. There's some strange looking angles there. This is all intentional, believe it or not. So the goal here, his electoral cav with his general in it, I think was like 16 or 17 away from those blue warriors that are sort of touching the forest. If you look at it, those cav would have an overrun into the flank of my Kingsguard. So this is intentional. This is what we call a trap, ladies and gentlemen. So that placement is intentional, and the intention was, of course, to flee if he did declare that charge. So I've given him the potential overrun flank. I've given him just enough distance to maybe make that charge, and I have a contingency. So I leave him with that. The other side, the other unit of electoral cav, if they do charge that unit of warriors, I would hold. And then they would have, depending on how he comes into that unit, he can overhang 1 horse on the left-hand side, and that would bring his overrun into my Kingsguard unit, which again, I'm absolutely fine with. At strength 6, having been charged, they're still AP3 and will do some nice work against those guys. So that's the goal. And then, of course, if that does happen, I would have even a flanking charge from those rangers on my turn. So that's the trap I've set over there. And I'm feeling a little bit clever myself. Making me feel not so clever is the fact that I completely forgot to apply my grudge. You'll see it sitting in the house over there, and that becomes a bit of an issue momentarily. For anyone who's played Dwarves before, usually if you have 1 grudge, it goes against the scariest unit. That unit would, of course, be his bus with the BSB, the wizard, and his general. There's really nothing else on the table that I would have grudged, but so it goes. But it plays out in sort of a strange way, and in the spirit of the game, we resolved it in such a way that makes it. Anyway, doesn't matter. Magic, I got 3 spells in, which is a great magic phase. I got -1 to wound in on my own general's unit, I got a -1 to hit on the leading unit of warriors in the center, and I got a -1 to wound off on the unit of Kingsguard, anticipating, just in case something went drastically wrong. I also suspect that they're going to take quite a bit of shooting. Now, there were 9 rangers in that wood, and those guys have 2 shots each, so that's potentially a lot of shooting if I have to take it. My shooting phase goes really great in the west. My 12 rangers do something like 7 or 8 wounds onto those rioters and just delete them off the field. They're still, the rangers continue to be one of the best units in the Dwarven Holds book, and anyone who's not taking them needs to give their head a shake. My cannon also spikes his griffin, hit him on a 5, wounded him on a 3, and then rolled a 6 for a total of 5 wounds, killing him outright. No panics, unfortunately, but still a pretty good result. My other cannon, I think, missed. And that's pretty much where we leave things. Let's go to Empire of Sansal, turn 1. Oh, the other unit of rangers shot the rangers in the forest, which were on a -2 modifier, and I still managed to kill 6. So, again, proof for you that rangers are the bomb-ass, dank-ass. I had 6 at short and 6 at long, so take from that what you will, but right, so the long guys would be at a -3 modifier and the short guys were at -2, but still pretty great result. Let's move on. Empire turn 1. He throws some charges here. So oh, there's something I forgot that was also pretty clever on my behalf, if I do say so. In the west, my unit of warriors that was sort of in line with the marker in the previous slide was within 11 inches of those flagellants intentionally. The reason for that is flagellants have frenzy, and that is their threshold. So if you're within 11 inches or less, they have to test, and they're nowhere near their BSB. So the goal was to try to get them moving towards me. Yeah, so you'll see they obviously are 4 inches further forward, and my unit of warriors is on the other side of my Kingsguard. So I'll let you deduce what happened. I fled. I fled through both units, and neither one panicked. His unit of flagellants moved forward 4 inches. Huzzah! In the east, this is where things get interesting. His electoral cav charged the unit of warriors that were part of the little trap I set, fled through my Kingsguard, no harm, no foul, and then he tested and redirected the other unit of warriors that were in front of the rangers. He needed an 11. I saw no problem with that, so I held. Especially given that my Kingsguard were going to be potentially in his flank or rear should he overrun into those warriors if he broke them, or he would have to reform facing me inside of a forest, so he would have no steadfast, and there is a very, very good chance that I win that combat given that I'm strength 7 AP 4 on the charge. I also have 15 attacks at least, so I was feeling pretty good. Obviously in combat, that unit of cavalry break my warriors. He manages to kill only 4, does not pursue them, and reforms in my face. In his magic phase, he did cast a spell there. I think it's Scrying. I think he got Scrying in on something silly. He got like an 11 or a 12 roll, so I let it go, but I devoured it, so he no longer has Scrying, which leaves him with... you know what, I don't know if I ran down his... I think I did run down his spells. So he no longer has Scrying, so he just has 2 unit buffs now, which are not as potent. Particularly given that those guys are defensive skill 3, so I'm feeling pretty good there. In shooting, my rangers out in the east try to shoot the electoral cav, and +1 armor saves do their job. No, sorry, we're on his turn. What am I talking about? That's really it. In his shooting phase, he doesn't do too much. It looks like he did 2 wounds onto my Kingsguard that are facing his general's unit, and I took 1 wound on the warrior unit in the center that is at -1 to hit. So, so far, everything's coming up dwarfs. Go on to dwarf's turn 2. Wow, where'd they go? This actually is it's going to be a combined turn. I'm sorry, guys. I actually missed 2 screenshots in this report, so you'll have to bear with me. So in my turn, I charged his unit of Electoral Cav with my great weapon wielding Kingsguard on an auto charge, essentially, and failed to get in. That's absolutely wrong. I got in, of course, because it was an auto. There are no other charges to discuss. So that's it. So in Magic, it appears... Oh yeah, this is where I really fucked up. So you'll see where my general's unit is in the center of the map near that house. I discovered in this unfortunate turn that I could not wheel sufficiently to be able to move my 9 inches essentially to the right so that I could get within spellcasting distance of that unit to support it with magic. I just kept clipping into the house. I couldn't reform and do it in any way. So unfortunately that unit is pretty much on their own, unsupported, no supporting charges available except for the Rangers. And yeah, that's sort of the tail of the tape, really. So because I couldn't get over there to either give them BSB or the benefit of magic, what ends up happening is sort of a foregone conclusion because you can see where his units end up. But my unit of Kingsguard charge in. I somehow lose, I think I lost a total of 5 before I got to hit, which is really out of the ordinary when you consider that those knights are just strength 4 AP 1. So that seems like an outlier to have lost that many models before striking. I don't think that's normal. I think he rolled exceptionally high. And then on my attacks, I did pretty well. I landed, I think I ended up with 7 wounds on him. Maybe slightly more. Yeah, just 7. But this is where we got into a bit of a sticky situation. Because I forgot my grudge, it's really fucking lame for me to... in the moment, he's within 3 inches of me, and a very strong charge threat to declare, oh yeah, I have hatred against your general's unit. So we basically went. I mean, my opponent was very gracious and said, yeah, that's a bummer, but why don't we roll a d6? If it's a 4-up, you hate that unit, and if not, we'll put it somewhere else. And I thought that was perfectly fair because it's my fuck up. So I did not have hatred against his general unit. If I did, I think I probably would have hit with a few more. And because I wound on 2s here, it's likely I do a few more wounds. Nevertheless, I still did 7. I did 7 wounds to his 5. I have a charge, but he saves. I think a total of 5 with 5-up armor. So I really only got, I think, 3 wounds in total. Maybe I think maybe 2 to 3. Either way, because of his static, so he has a banner, a BSB, and then the wounds that he did, I somehow lose this combat by 2. And he killed enough that my second rank was down to 4 models. So I only had 1 rank. He has his full rank in his front, and even though he's in the forest, because I lose combat, I'm not steadfast. So I was testing on a 7, I think, because I lost by 2, and I run. I run through my unit of warriors that had rallied behind me, and he pursues me and hits those unit of warriors that are obviously going to lose as well, and you can see in this slide that they do, and he gets a 2-for-1 on the overrun, killing both the Kingsguard and the warriors in his turn. So that's why his cav are facing the way they are. The other unit of cav charged the other unit of warriors, broke them, but did not pursue. So they only flee, I think, 7 or 5, and they're just sitting by the board edge. They're currently fleeing in this slide. In his shooting in the center, you see his machines are starting to work. He killed 4 Kingsguard and 6 warriors. And that's really all there is to tell. He moves his flagellants forward into the face of my warriors. So this is where we're at. That combat, if I had hatred, I think there's pretty much no way that I lose it. He did roll exceptionally high on his armor saves, so he would not have been... All I had to do was win by like 1 or 2. He would not be steadfast in the forest. I mean, he wouldn't be steadfast anyway because he's only at 1 rank. But yeah, just really, really devastating. And if I had magic support there, -1 to hit or -1 to wound would have been a big deal. I will note that I did cast Revocation into his unit, so I did remove the scrying, so I was hitting normally on 3s there, but even so, you hate to see it. We'll move on, because we have his turn as well. We're going into a dwarf turn here. I think it's dwarf turn 3. Right, so rallies. I rally the unit of warriors way out in the west. Oh, there's some charges here as well. So my Kingsguard in the center charged the unit of bowmen. I guess they're crossbowmen. And my unit of 3 warriors charged the cannon. My other unit of warriors charged the flagellants. And then out in the east again, I have my rangers set up with a front charge from those electoral cavalry. With the intention of basically taking the charge. I'm not too worried about it. They're not like extremely potent offensively, and those rangers have a 4-up armor and a shield and shield wall, so I'm pretty confident I will remain steadfast there, or at least not lose too badly. And then I have that unit of warriors ready to charge in on the flank and potentially disrupt him and possibly break him. You'll see I moved my whole Guardians out from behind the house. I felt at this point I really needed to threaten his cavalry units, and the only thing that I really have that can do that is my move 10 whole Guardians. They are, of course, a prime target for his war machines, which is why they were hiding in the first place. But yeah, we need to do something. We need to somehow threaten those guys, because they're just going to keep running through my small units if I don't. General's unit keeps moving towards the center, is currently scoring. In combat, my 3 warriors kill the cannon, fail to overrun the 8 into the griffin, which was really just a pinning charge. I didn't really expect them to do anything against the griffin. I just wanted the griffin not to be able to charge, and now he can. I make a little movement error in the warrior versus flagellant fight. I only lose 3 models there, and I kill, I think, 13, maybe 12, or sorry, not 13, 8 or 7. So I win by a lot, but when I reform, I gave his griffin some frontage, unfortunately, which was a bit of an error. We also had a bit of another gentleman's debate or decision between us both. His griffin is actually positioned in such a way that my cannon can see it, but I wanted to know his intention, and he told me the intention was not to be seen, so I did not fire my cannon at that griffin, because I would have felt really bad if I spiked both of them at long range, but so it goes. Obviously the Kingsguard kill those bowmen, overrun. They're now positioned to run into the side of that rocket, and that's kind of it. In shooting, my rangers in the west do a total of 8 wounds onto his crossbowmen, which then flee. They do not panic the griffin though, which is a bit of a disappointment, but hey, not too bad. And then in the east, my unit of 12 rangers fire into his cav and do nothing again, because that 1+ armor save is so fucking good. That's it. We move on. Empire Sonstal, turn 3. He charged my rangers with his electoral cav. He only had 3 models in base-to-base contact. He did 1 wound. I was steadfast on a 9. I rolled a 12. I ran away 7, and he caught me. He also charged my unit of warriors that were fighting the flagellants with his griffin. And we lose that combat. The griffin has, I think, 5 attacks or something at strength 6. Maybe, I think it's 4 attacks at strength 6. But it was enough. And they actually killed the entire unit of warriors. So the flagellants did not have an overrun. But the death of those warriors caused my Kingsguard to panic, which was kind of a blessing in disguise. Maybe, maybe not. Because the griffin would have overrun into the flank of those Kingsguard the way I had them positioned. But he would have to kill a buttload, I think 9, in order to break their steadfast. So I would have, even if he got into me, I'd have 6 strength 6 attacks back at him. He only has 4 or 5 wounds. He's got no ward save. I probably, almost certainly, just win that grind. So a bit disappointing to have fled there, but I could have positioned better so that he was overrunning into my front. But, you know, bad or mad, I don't know. That's kind of it that's noteworthy here. He moves his bowman up into the face of my general. I think tipping his hand here. This looks like a classic double flee maneuver to me. If I were him, I'd flee with those bowmen, and then when I go to redirect, probably going to redirect on the safer charge, which would be the rangers in the woods, and then he flees with those, and I've now exposed my juicy flank to his general's unit and my front to his flagellants. So we're going to not do that, but we're going to move on to the dwarf turn 4. Yeah. Dwarf turn 4, the Kingsguard rally. Thankfully, the rangers pivot so that they can shoot the griffin that failed, well, didn't fail, but overran, I think, 7 or 8 inches, couldn't catch the Kingsguard. My Kingsguard at the bottom of the map charged the rocket. Holy shit, my miners finally arrived. Turn 4. Given that my game plan for winning this game involved my miners arriving nice and early, turn 4 is not what I had in mind, but they're here now, so that's great. I do think I could have potentially put my miners at the very top of the map to deal with his electoral cav. That's probably a bit of an aggressive move. I mean, their shooting is AP2, and if I charge, I'm strength 5 AP2, so potentially it brings some nice clout to that fight with his general. And given that I did get in with my Hold Guardian on what is effectively a pinning charge, that's not so bad. But instead, the game plan was to kill his war machines with my miners, so I stuck with that. I forgot to mention that my Hold Guardians, after moving out from behind the house, actually take 6 wounds. So he cast an erring strike on them and did 3 wounds with that, and he also hit them once with the rocket battery and did another 3 wounds. So a bit of an owie. But they made their charge needing an 8 into his general's unit, so that's a nice pinning charge, preventing him, I hope, from charging my general's unit in the flank. You'll see I've repositioned or reformed my general's unit to keep all of those units in the southeast in his front, especially given that I knew support was going to be on the way from behind with my Kingsguard and my miners. I also charged with my warriors in the west against his rangers, and they fled. So those rangers are fleeing. I only ran 2 inches, I think, with those warriors, so they just went a total of 2 inches towards them. My Hold Guardian in the combat, I did manage to get -1 to hit in on him, and I think I preemptively cast Revocation on my opponent's unit as well, which is often a smart thing to do if you have no other options. So my Hold Guardian is -1 to hit, which is great, and he manages to spike the wizard. So I did 3 attacks onto the wizard, all 3 hit and all 3 wounded, killing him and winning me the combat, but they stick. The warriors move up their 9 to threaten a flank charge in a subsequent turn. And we'll move on. My miners did, I think, a total of 3 wounds in their shooting against the rocket. This is Empire Sunstall turn 4. He charges my anvil with his griffin. Obviously, I missed with my cannon on his griffin in the previous turn, and I think my rangers did no wounds against him. In that combat, he does 1 wound onto the anvil. I think I saved 2 with my 5-up Aegis, and I do 1 wound back, and I'm unbreakable. For some reason, he charged his flagellants into my warriors. Commit honorable Sudoku with them. I'm not entirely sure why he did that. I think he'd have been better off using them as a chaff piece at that point, and perhaps redirecting me if he was worried about scoring. But, he did that. Shooting, he killed 3 warriors in the center, which is a pretty good result to me. And then in the combat with the Electoral Cav, he did 2 wounds onto my Whole Guardian, and I did 2 wounds onto his BSB. I nearly died here. He got 2 wounds onto me with his knights and his character hits, and then their horses he managed to sneak a wound through, but I luckily saved it after failing 2 4-up armor saves. I finally made a 3-up armor save against the horse, and my Whole Guardian will live to fight 1 more round. His Inquisitor leaves his unit of Electoral Cav and shoots at my warriors, killing 3, which is a bit of a bummer because that really reduces the strength of their incoming flank charge. And that's it. That's going to be it. Dora's turn 5. His Griffin finally kills the anvil in my turn, and I didn't know this was going to happen. I sort of thought it would push again, or at least I'd be unbroken, but he did kill the anvil. So I start heading towards the objective with my Kingsguard. Again, I'm not like super concerned about that Griffin charging the rear or the back of my Kingsguard because, well, they're strength 6 attacks, and he now is on 1 wound. I think that thing only has 4 wounds, so not super concerned about that. But I also just needed to head for the objective, so yeah, necessary. I did manage to get in with my warriors against his Electoral Cav, and it looks like they I think they killed 1 guy, but he also killed my Whole Guardian. He managed to wound onto my Whole Guardian. So I actually think I lose this combat. No, he would have lost because I had a flank, a charge, a flank and a charge. No, it's just a push because his static is 2 because he's got the BSB and the banner. We each did a wound, so it's a push, and he reforms to face me. Down below, I charged his Artificer's unit that was in the ruins there with my Kingsguard, and he flees. I fail to redirect against the Rangers, so I continue after those Artificers. My Miners charged the rocket and obviously killed it, but only overrun about 5 inches. My General's unit charges the Bowman in front of him. Now that there's support in the rear, I'm not so worried about flank charges. And because I still have his General pinned, I don't need to be super concerned about an incoming charge. So I made a bold move, charged his Bowman, and he fled, going 5 inches. So I did not redirect, and I just went ahead and ate them. And reformed facing north. That unit behind them is of course fleeing, so can't charge me. And that's kind of the tail of the tape. Yeah, so we'll move on to his turn 5. So Empire Sonstal turn 5, he charges his Griffin into the flank of my Kingsguard, and because you no longer see the Griffin, I killed it. My warriors in the center just moved towards the Rangers. This is his turn. What am I? No, this is his turn and my turn again. Yeah, I think I fucked up. No, this is his turn. Yeah, so he charged my Kingsguard with his Griffin. He rallied his Rangers, so they're staying exactly where they are. His gun unit with the engineer fled through both the flagellants and my spears, and ultimately he kills my. I guess there was 2 or maybe 3 models of warriors left fighting his general's unit, so he turns to face the center of the map. And I think it's my turn 6. There's nothing else really of note. I think I just start boogieing towards the objectives. Yeah, so the Rangers head for the objectives. The 3 models of warriors head for the objectives. The center warriors charge the Rangers and get in. I think I killed 7 on the charge, so he broke and I ran them down. The Kingsguard just start boogieing towards the center objective. They're now scoring. My general just kind of chills where he's at and gets ready for a charge. Now I did miss that this Inquisitor was in my flank. I just didn't notice that he was there, a single model, little piece of shit. I definitely had the movement and the ability to reform to keep him and everything else in my front arc. I just straight up didn't notice that he was there. I also could have moved my Rangers into a position. Actually, it's turn 6. It doesn't matter, so I couldn't have done anything further. It's possible. No, I think it's too far. I don't think I could shoot them. But yeah, I just didn't notice he was there. So I'm now scoring. I have the objective. He's got a couple long charges onto my general to try to get some points, and I think he's going for that because he cannot score. He's too far away to be able to contest the objective. So his only chance at points is my general's unit. So let's go. So he charges in with his general, his BSB, the 3 knights they have remaining. He charges his flagellants in my front, and he charges the Inquisitor into my side. This breaks my spears, so my spears don't have the additional initiative or the additional AP, but I'm still AP2 because I have a runesmith in the unit, and they're still spears. I challenge with my champion. He accepts, I think, with his general, kills the champion, and does 1 wound of overkill. The other knights kill 1 warrior. And then everything else he has, he sends into my general. So he hits with his Inquisitor at my general and manages 1 wound and does 2 wounds with his multi-wound. Then he sends 6 flagellants at the general and does nothing. I think I saved the last wound with a shield wall save. So he ends up doing nothing. Yeah, that's 5 wounds. Champion, overkill, 1 body, 2 wounds on my general, and then I did 5, so I did 1 on his Inquisitor with the flank attacks, and then I did 4 onto his flagellants for a 5-5 in combat, and then our static is pretty much the same, so it ends up as a push. I might have won this combat, actually, now that I look at it again, because I have 2 ranks. Do I have 3 ranks? I have 3 ranks and 2 banners, and I did 5 wounds. He has 2 banners, 1 rank, and 5 wounds. I don't know, I've had a couple beers and I can't do that mental math at the moment. If I won that combat, let me know. I think I actually may have. Flagellants are unbreakable though, so I don't think it makes any difference. Maybe if they're fleeing it makes a difference, but that's the game. I hate to say this, but I actually think I could have done better. It ends up as a 15-5. You see over on the left-hand side there, I did 24-14 to him, and he did 17-22 to me for a difference of 692, which is a 12-8, and then when you factor the objective, it's 15-5. I actually feel like he gave me a gift on turn 2, and the dice gods frowned upon me. Perhaps because I forgot to place my grudge. If I had done that, I almost certainly win that combat. And the other mistake, of course, that cost me in that same turn was the fact that I misplaced or misdeployed my spear bus. If the magic spear bus was 3 to 4 inches to the right from that house, I would already be much closer to the Kingsguard, but I also would have had the ability to wheel appropriately to move myself within range to support with casting, as well as with the leadership rerolls, which even on a leadership 7, having lost that combat, would have been a big difference maker, because I do think they win that grind with the strength 6 attacks. So I can't complain about the result. I think my opponent played a pretty good game given how difficult of a matchup this is for him. I mean, it's a lot of toughness 4 bodies pressing down on you. And I think he did catch a few breaks, but those tend to even out in a long run. I just think, coming at it from a team perspective, this was a matchup no one wanted, but I do think that it was a matchup that certainly favored me, and I could have done more for my team. So we're in that a little bit here today, but we're still in good shape. I think we're currently in 5, and we've got our round 3 matchup now posted. We're going to be playing a Polish team, which also happens to include a copycat list from a fellow named Danrak, who I know watches these videos, not just because he copied my list, but because sometimes he comments on them. So Danrak, I've got a feeling that we're headed for a showdown, buddy, and I'm not too happy about it, because I feel like your list is a bit of a, I wouldn't say improvement on mine, but in a head-to-head, in fact, I think your list is pretty shit in comparison, but in a head-to-head, I think it's stronger than mine. So there you go. Take that for what it's worth. Hey, you see, he was actually watching my game. Danrak left. So we'll see. Probably next week. I hope to bring that game to you. Until then, stay Jimmy, boys.